Okay, welcome everyone to the December meeting of the Bronxville Planning Board. Appreciate everyone coming out on this rainy night. We have two items on our agenda, both of which deal with the Iona campus. And so we'll work our way through those. Our first order of business, though, is to approve the minutes of our October meeting, which was our last meeting. If folks had a chance to review, and if so, would someone like to make a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, good. We have the minutes of that meeting. The first order of business, which is actually broken into two parts, I think, for resolution purposes, and we'll get to that, but it'll be one presentation, is the antenna replacement at the AT&T facility at Iona. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of the applicant? If so, please come to the mic that you so kindly fixed and introduce yourself, and please take us through this.
Hi. Good evening. My name is David Bass. I'm here on behalf of Aerosmith Development, which is based in Saratoga Springs, New York. And we are representing New Singular Wireless, which is AT&T, which is doing an antenna swap on the roof of the building at 171 White Plains Road at Iona University. Hopefully, this is going to be a very simple one. There are currently 12 antennas on the roof of the building. You can't see them. They're behind a stealth wall. We are removing 3 of the antennas. We're replacing 6 antennas. We're relocating 2 antennas, and we're keeping 1 antenna for a total of 9 antennas. In addition, there are 12 what are called RRHs, which is like a signal booster. And there are 12 of them now. We're removing 3 and we're replacing 9 of them. So it's a very simple application. AT&T's been doing these for about 27,000 sites across the country, upgrading to 5G. It'll benefit the community. AT&T also provides emergency services to police and fire department. So it's definitely a benefit to the community to have the most upgraded antennas. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Just one clarifying thing. I don't know if it's for you or for our council, but this is broken into 2 actions. One is for the antenna replacement. One is for the 5-year renewal. If you could just explain that to us.
Correct. Okay. So every 5 years, the special permit needs to be renewed. And this is actually past due for renewal. So we are doing an application to renew that tonight. Your consultant has reviewed the application, had a number of comments to it, which we addressed, and ultimately said that he didn't have any more questions, that we complied with the renewal. And then after the renewal is the application for the special permit to do this antenna swap. So kind of doing it in order, it would make sense to first vote on the renewal and then on the application.
Yep. Any questions for the board?
I think the only finding we have to make, and I think it's for the special use permit, is that the modifications constitute an eligible facilities request.
I couldn't quite hear that.
I'm sorry. I think the only finding we need to make with respect to the special use permit is that the modifications constitute an eligible facilities request.
Yes, an eligible facilities request is under section 6409 of federal law. We basically, an eligible facilities request application doesn't give the municipality much discretion on these applications. They really have to be approved if they meet certain requirements. They're not extending the height, they're not defeating concealment, they're not projecting off the building more than 4 feet. There's a total of 6 standards, but this is as good as it gets. It's a stealth application where you can't see them, and it meets all of the requirements of Section 6409 eligible facilities request. There are timelines that are associated with this type of application, which is that a municipality is supposed to rule within 60 days. It's been more than 60 days, but you had comments and that tolls the application. And, we were happy to, meet or answer all of the questions and supply all the materials. So I would just say that, like, if the building permit was issued within the next 30 days, that would comply with 6409.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, I think we're going to open up the public meeting for this particular application, see if there's anyone from the public who has any comments they'd like to add. Seeing none on this application, I think we'll close the public meeting for this. Any discussion before we have a motion on this? If not, would someone like to make a motion? I think the first motion they would prefer be the renewal.
Yep.
And then the second one, so if someone would like to do that.
I move we renew the existing special use permit.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, we have a motion regarding the antenna replacement.
I move that we approve the special use permit amendment based on a finding that the proposed modifications constitute an eligible facilities request under applicable federal law.
Have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey, thank you very much for coming in and explaining a thing or two.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So the question I just would have is the process from this point on
I think you can probably chat on the side with Kevin. So
Absolutely.
if you guys could sidebar on that, I think it
Sure. Okay, thank you.
would be good. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, our next order of business is the proposed set of improvements for the baseball field at Iona University. Before we call up the applicant, the time has run for us to be able to declare ourselves lead agency on this. We had adopted that position at a prior meeting, and we sent notice to all the neighboring municipalities and others who need to be informed of this. No one has objected to that position, but in order to be the lead agency, we need to actually adopt a resolution to that effect. So would someone like to move that the Bronxville Planning Board serve as lead agency for this project?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so we've got that taken care of. Now I think what we'd appreciate is someone from Iona coming up, introducing themselves and bringing us up to speed on current developments on the project.
Hope it's as easy as the antenna. We didn't even know it was on the agenda, so we appreciate it.
Oh, that's funny.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mark Weingarten. I'm a partner in the law firm of Del Bello, Dinellen, Weingarten, Wise, and Wiedeker, and here representing Iona University in connection with its request for site plan approval to permit certain modifications to the baseball field on its Concordia campus located at 182 White Plains Road. This is a continuation, as we'll mention in the record as we go through it. I'm joined tonight by a large group from the school. Michael Smeriglio, our Vice President of Facilities and Campus Operations, Susan Fiore, our General Counsel, Joe Castaldo, our Director of the Bronxville Campus Safety, Buildings and Grounds, Kevin Herrick, the Managing Principal Architect at SLAM. And you will hear during the presentation in a few moments from Matt Glowowski, our Athletic Director, John Folks, our Sound Engineer from Kavanaugh Tochi, and Michael Tucker from Langen, our engineers, where he's a Senior Project Manager. As you were all aware, Iona acquired the 28-acre campus from Concordia in January of 2022, and in the last 3 years, it has substantially invested in the campus to make it the home of its New York Presbyterian School of Health Sciences, as well as its state-of-the-art Kelly Center for Health Sciences. The campus houses numerous facilities for performing arts and athletics, just as it did for its predecessor. The baseball field is located on an approximately 9-acre parcel on the east side of White Plains Road at its intersection with Rose Avenue. The property is located in the Residence A district, which principally permits a school use, and athletic field uses are permitted accessory uses. Contrary to certain communications to this board, our use is permitted in the code, and it is not a non-conforming use. Therefore, the case law which has been sent to you regarding non-conforming use, in our opinion, is not applicable. Iona's initial discussions with the village began more than a year ago, filed an application in December of 2024, and worked with village professional staff and consultants responding to comments, producing reports and analysis, which led to a refiling in April of 2025. We appeared before this board on June 11, presented proposed modifications necessary to enable the baseball field to meet Division I standards, which we outlined for you at our last meeting. At that meeting, comments were received from your board and again, your professionals, and subsequent to the meeting, a memo was produced by your engineering firm and consultant CJ. We responded to the outstanding comments in a letter to your board on September 22. Also in September, we not only responded to those comments, but we also amended our site plan application to include the property currently housing the tennis courts in order to incorporate additional stormwater management systems, which result in a reduction of runoff from the property to Crawford Street, reducing it by an average of 70% in the 1, 10, and 100-year storm events. On October 8, we received additional comments from KSCJ, which we partially responded to orally at the hearing before you on October 16, and we fully responded in writing on November 19. On December 3, we again received comment letters from your consultant, and our professionals were prepared to respond to those comments this evening. The proposed project is really a simple one: maintain the same use on a better facility. The field will continue to be used for practice and approximately 16 to 22 home games per year, all during daylight hours. Last year, as we told you the last time we were here, we have averaged 87 spectators per game, but we based our studies on nearly double that number in attendance, despite the fact that we don't believe that will occur and have no reason to believe it will increase. The 4 major areas of potential impact which have been identified by this board for our focus have been addressed in our submissions. Those 4 areas of concern are as follows. 1, stormwater runoff. We've already mentioned the stormwater improvements which have been added upon based on the comments from you and your consultants, and the 70% decrease Tri-Crawford, certainly in our estimation, far exceeds our legal obligation to mitigate any potential environmental impacts in that area. 2, sound impacts. You will hear from our sound engineer regarding the proposed PA system for game use only. He will demonstrate that the sound level of the PA system at our property's perimeter approximates the typical background noise in the neighborhood experienced at that time of day. 3, safety from batted balls. You will hear from our athletic director, Mike Lewowski, regarding the fence height and protection from batted balls. Matt will not only describe the safety mechanisms in place to protect people outside the property, he will also demonstrate with the best evidence available, existing statistical data, how unlikely it is for an accident to occur. We've also, I'll mention, I don't think we have it in writing yet, we've been informed by your police department that they will be able to certify that they are unaware of any accident that has taken place as a result of a batted ball from numerous years at this facility predating us, and we'll be looking to get that from them at a future date. I understand it was quite an event here with a fire in the last day or so, so we haven't been able to get a writing. And finally, number 4, traffic and parking. During this, since the last time we've met, we've submitted a game day traffic management plan, a construction management plan, and a further revised parking analysis. Our engineer, Mike Tucker from Langen Engineering, will briefly address those reports and the findings. So first, I'm going to ask John Folks to come up. Our sound engineer, Matt Glowowski, our athletic director, will follow, and Mike Tucker, our engineer, will follow him. Thank you.
Do you think the microphone would,
So we don't have a mic there. What?
does that one travel? Yeah, that one should do that.
Thanks, Christina.
Right here.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. My name is John Folks. I'm with Kavanaugh Tachi Associates. We're a leading acoustical consulting firm. Been in business for just about going on 50 years now. I've personally been working as an acoustical consultant for more than 20 years now, covering a wide range of projects from outdoor sound projects like this, also interior acoustics, sound system design, and a lot of other things too. So just a little background there. In June of this year, we were engaged by Iona University as an independent consultant to study how a baseball field PA system might affect the surrounding community, and also to how that impact could be minimized. So I'm going to try to keep this brief, but I'll mention, I think Mark already summarized it pretty nicely and succinctly just a few minutes ago, but I'm going to give you a brief overview of what we did for our sound study and why we did it and sort of the conclusions we came to as a result. So first point I want to make is just the goal of the study was to understand first the existing conditions in the neighborhood, and then try to develop a PA system design that would be compatible with that environment. And by that, I mean essentially very little change for the neighborhood living experience for residents in that area. So to that end, we completed a study of the existing conditions, which is focused first and foremost on essentially how quiet it gets during baseball hours. And that might sound a little bit counterintuitive at first, but essentially identifying quietest conditions is really important because our perception of sound and loudness is related to how loud a particular sound is in relation to other sounds in the environment. So that's really the key there to understanding, compatibility in that situation. Essentially as the background sound gets quieter, any other sounds become more noticeable and seem louder. So essentially using the quietest background conditions to set our PA system design criteria means a quieter and more controlled PA system. So to characterize those existing conditions, we monitored background sound levels over a 1 week period at some representative locations surrounding the site, and analyzed that data looking for the nominally lowest sound level that occurs normally during the baseball hour period. And what we found was that at the quietest of those locations, essentially 40 decibels, 40 dBA, I can touch on that more later, but is essentially the low background sound number that we came up with. And essentially that means that most of the time in that neighborhood, it's at least 40 dBA or higher, again, during baseball hours. And it's very rarely less than 40 dB. So with that, then we worked to develop a PA system design that essentially limit the PA sound to no louder than that lowest background sound level of 40 at the nearest property lines. And I want to also make a point that 40 for the PA sound is a maximum value, whereas the 40 dBA background sound in the neighborhood sound is essentially more or less a minimum, and generally PA sound will max out here, and the intent is that the neighborhood sound may be 40, but a lot of times is higher than 40 as well. I also think it's worth noting we actually conducted that sound monitoring during the summer months when there was minimal students and activity on campus at that time. So essentially that most likely means we're measuring quieter conditions that normally occur during the baseball season and effectively leading to a more conservative PA design limit. So to get to the 40 dBA, we proposed as a limit for the PA sound at the nearest properties. We used essentially three fundamental elements, one of which is highly directional loudspeakers. They focus the sound onto the listeners and not elsewhere. The second piece is multiple loudspeakers distributed across the coverage area or the spectator seating area. So essentially we that also means that each loudspeaker is closer to the listeners. So the end result is that those loudspeakers can deliver the same announcements to people at a lower volume and working at a lower volume. I think there's been parallels drawn to that on the lighting side here as well. And the other third important piece is automatic electronic limiting, which essentially prevents the PA system from operating higher than a predetermined level that will be set that essentially meets that 40 dB goal at the property line. So that essentially translates to about 75 decibels at the seating location in the bleachers. And at that level, with this design and with those loudspeakers, that would essentially prevent the loud PA sound from reaching above the 40 decibel level at the nearest residential locations. And also another point there is that we're looking at the closest residences. And also I wanted to point out that that simulation was at the second level of the residential locations, just to try to get a worst case condition for.
One quick question. When you say neighboring properties, would you have included Concordia Conservatory as one of the neighboring
did.
properties?
Yeah, we
Thank you.
treated that as in a butter essentially.
Okay, thank you.
So, so I want to clear that up too, that the measurements were, or our predictions were at that second level. And there's really a minimal difference between ground level and second level at that point for that purpose anyway, but I want to make that clear. And also that our 40 dBA goal is for those nearest properties. And as you get further into the neighborhood, sound levels drop off further. And you can see that in our sound study report. It has a figure that sort of plots the PA sound levels around the neighborhood. And the closest ones are in that 40 range. And after that, they drop off into, lower values. So I also did want to point out, I know these numbers for decibels are probably not real familiar for a lot of people, and I think it's worth noting that the 75 decibel level we're talking about for the PA system at the bleachers, at the listening position, is very, substantially lower than what would be typical at a lot of other similar venues, and where their PA systems probably operate in more of the 85 to 90 decibel range. Maybe I'd say 85 to 90 would be not unusual, even higher sometimes. I mean, it varies quite a bit. But just to put that in perspective a little bit, we really are talking about keeping that PA system level at a lower than usual level in order to try to be compatible with the surroundings. So yeah, I just want to, the last thing I want to say, I want to reiterate that we really did approach this absolutely with the neighborhood interest in mind, and trying to also still allow the university to include a PA system that's a functional PA system in their renovation project for this facility. And we worked, did I think a thorough and a substantial effort to really try to meet that goal and arrive at a PA system design that would actually be acceptable for residents in the neighborhood. So that's really the
Okay.
overview I wanted to give everyone. So
Any
thanks
questions
that.
for him before we keep rolling?
I think it might be meaningful for the community, particularly the conservatory community, to understand, to really feel the effects of that PA system. If there's a way to mock it up and have representatives, in the school listening and trying to perform some kind of way to determine if the decibel levels are not impacting them. I think that there's a lot of concern because there's a conservatory which is all about audio right next to the PA system. Excuse my voice.
Yeah, I mean, it would be possible to mock something up, I think. But I think the concern of within the conservatory itself, I think I wouldn't be concerned with that. I'd say that, again, with this system as we proposed here, you would not hear the PA system at all inside a building, any building, in this, on the perimeter of that site or beyond, assuming windows are closed, doors are closed.
The ambient noise, in the area is largely traffic?
Traffic dominates, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And there's other things, but that's predominant.
We don't have other questions. Shall we continue with the presentation? No, there's going to be a public meeting after they present, and there will be plenty of opportunity, but we're going to do things in sequence. Sorry, I didn't say that at the beginning. Yep, it's all good. Hey, who's next?
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Matt Glavosky. I'm the Director of Athletics at Iona University, and I'll be speaking to the effectiveness of the proposed netting system that we've been looking at for the new field, and also I think what I'll start with is talk a little bit historically about just the number of home runs, the frequency of home runs hit at the Division I level. I think, and hopefully dispel maybe the perception of multiple home runs being hit at every game, and provide a little bit of context, I think, about what we can expect at the new field, and ultimately how effective the new netting system will be to help protect everything outside of the field. So again, I thought what would be helpful is just to provide a little bit of context. Sometimes the perception is that when you go to a college game, there is multiple home runs, and certainly while that can be the case, the reality is that when you look at the statistics, it is really not. And so we pulled 23 years of data, 2002 to 2025, 339 games, home games were played during that time. During that time, 338 total home runs were hit by Iona and our opposition. So about one home run per game. I actually think this is the one.
Math isn't quite working, but we get the concept.
The math is wrong. There's something that, so this might be
It's
an
okay.
old presentation. I don't know if it's possible to bring the new one up. That's okay. We'll keep going. We'll work through it here. So, and again, I thought also important to provide a little bit of a greater cross-section, not just Iona, but ultimately the league itself. So we compete in the MAC conference in 2025, a system known as TrackMan, which is a system that ultimately tracks all the different metrics around speed of baseball, launch angle, trajectory, things of that nature. Our team subscribe to that. They track a great deal of different metrics. 17,850 total pitches, total balls that were put in play were tracked in 2025. Of those total 17,000 balls, only 3.52% of all those batted balls resulted in a home run. So a very small percentage. So roughly consistent with the MAC and with our Iona statistics, about a home run per game. So I thought that would be helpful just to provide a little bit of
It
context.
was also, am I reading that statistic right, that almost none of them were hit to right field?
Correct. Less than 1% were hit to right.
Well, of the home run.
Of all those home runs,
Oh, okay.
0.63%.
0.63%.
That's correct. Yeah. So
Well,
it's a
It's
very
an
small
important
number.
statistic in terms of what we're
It
looking
is, no
at.
question. So also, I know that there were some questions and concerns about what we call exit velocity, which is the speed that a baseball leaves the bat. And I also thought helpful to kind of paint a little bit of a picture, again, of those 17,850 pitches that were recorded. These are batted balls put in play. Only 94 reached 100 miles per hour exit velocity. So again, less than 1% of all those pitches, those balls put in play, reached 100 miles per hour. On average, and this comes from Baseball America, which is kind of the governing body that follows these metrics, on average, we expect about 86.1 miles per hour for batted balls. I also think it's important when you look historically at home run data, and we pulled some of this data, the longest home run ever hit at the college level was 463 feet at the College World Series in 2023. So I know there's a lot of rumors about 500 and 550-foot home runs, but the reality is that when you look at the data, home runs that exceed 400 feet are extremely rare. So that number 400 will be important, particularly as we look at the effectiveness of the netting. And so again, as I mentioned, only 6 to 10% of all Division I home runs, and this was tracked in 2025, were hit 400 feet or farther. Of those Division I home runs, roughly we see somewhere between 360 and 395 feet are the average distances for home runs. 400 feet home runs are very, very uncommon. And again, as I mentioned, longest home run in college history, 456 feet in the 2023 College World Series. That data comes from a cross-section of all conferences around America, particularly the Power Four, which are recognized as the elite conferences. So that data is somewhat skewed by what we consider to be the best college baseball in America. So important to just kind of keep that in mind. So this is an important graphic. This is what we call a batting practice dispersion. So over the last 3 seasons since we've started using the Bronxville campus, we have used it for practice. We have been tracking our batting practice sessions.
So this is on that field?
Correct.
This data?
Yep, this is on that field, and the overlay is with the projected dimensions of the new field as well.
And are the dots where the ball landed or where it ended up?
Where they landed,
Okay.
Yep. And
what's
so,
the color coding?
yep, so the orange are fly balls, the blue are line drives, and the green are ground balls. So we tracked, again, fall 2024, spring 2025, fall 2025, just under 3,000 pitches, 2,975 pitches to be exact. And I think a couple important takeaways from this graphic. Number one, you can see the dispersion is largely through the center
Sorry,
of the
but
field.
if something went over the wall, would it still show up or did it?
It would,
was
and you
the
can
data
see
be
it. Yep.
lost?
So
Okay.
actually you can see, if you looked at the left center power gap. That
Oh, there we go.
41, that is
Thank
where the
you.
majority of the balls have gone out in
Yep,
our batting
I see
practice
it.
to date. And that's again with the existing fencing in place.
Yep.
So you can see again, and important to realize that in batting practice, these are the ideal conditions to hit, right? Our players know essentially the speed that's coming in, the location. This is where we want to really obviously position our players to get ready for the game. So this is really, in my opinion, where we need to be most concerned because again, this is where the most balls are being hit at a given time. And I think this is a really good, important reflection of where balls are hit during batting practice. As you can see, that right center field wall, that 300 number, which is important, that's the shortest part of the projected field, almost no activity whatsoever.
And what was the longest ball?
We average anywhere between 360 and 399 was our longest. But I think on average, what we saw was about 350 to 375.
And from this, it doesn't show any balls going onto Route 22 or Rose Avenue.
That's correct.
And at that point, you did not have the netting?
That's correct. This is with the, like I said, this is the existing netting in place.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so I will spare you the calculation here, but I
Come on,
wanted
we
to show
wanna
you where
get
we
into
got the
the
science. But again, as I mentioned, if you look at kind of our dispersion chart, looking at those more than 3,000, nearly 3,000 pitches, on average, we look at about 350 to 375 is our average home run, predominantly to that left field center wall, 341 feet. So what we try to do is look at what are the ideal, the prime conditions should we hit a home run. One of the things that we look at is what's called launch angle. Launch angle is the vertical angle. It measures the degree to which the ball leaves the bat. That's a really important factor in terms of how high the ball travels and ultimately how far it goes. So a 30-degree launch angle is kind of your prime measure for launch
It's
angle.
probably also called an Aaron Judge.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Lot of those going off Aaron Judge's bat these days. And so what we see here is a diagram that basically tracks the distance of the ball relative to its distance from home plate. And what we see here is, if you can see, there's a right dot right here. That 312 number, that's ultimately where that 40-foot fence comes into play. And ultimately what would happen is that 40-foot fence at that point would prevent something the equivalent of a 400-foot home run. Okay? So obviously much more effective than the 28-foot fence that we have in place currently. But again, you can see, and I think most importantly, again, where we see the majority of those home runs that are hit, that number 341 in the left center gap, the new 40-foot fencing would prevent something in the equivalent of a 427-foot home run. So again, when you really kind of peel everything back and look at the layers, the infrequency of the home runs overall, the infrequency of balls that are hit 400 or over, and I think the proposed 40-foot netting should be, I think, incredibly impactful in terms of preventing balls from leaving the field. And then the final thing that I just wanted to share, and this is not something we use at the current field, but this is called the batting turtle or portable batting cage. This is something that we would roll out and use for every one of our batting practices. What's really important here is this prevents everything, that anything would be a foul ball or anything that would be that what we consider that dead right pull that would affect the street right next to it, that's captured by this cage. So it's an extra additive safety measure that we would have in place moving forward that we do not currently.
No, this is helpful new information. Obviously, we'll need our consultants to take a peek, but
Absolutely.
this is very much what we're looking for. Any questions before they continue with their presentation? Not when we keep rolling. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Only one mic.
Make sure, does this still work? All right.
Still working.
Good evening, Mike Tucker from Langen. I'll be very brief. With our last submission, and I think before our last meeting, we had submitted an updated parking study. We've updated that. It was part of the submission prior to this meeting as well. We did some additional counts in the fall at the request of both the public and the board. And how that turned out was the minimum available spaces during that count in the fall ended up being a little bit less than what was previously proposed. However, there was a minimum of 93 spaces available in the Meyer Center parking lot, which is the lot that's going to be designated for the baseball games and how the traffic management plan will direct the cars there. So with those 93 spaces, there's still plenty of spaces available there to support the baseball field and the fans there. So there were also some questions regarding where we got where we sourced the 2 to 3 people per car for those. The most recent parking study does reference 2 different sources. The Eno Foundation for Transportation is a little bit of an older source. However, they for sporting events say that there's about 2.3 persons per car attending sporting events. And then there's an updated ULI Urban Land Institute publication for similar type sporting events that say that there's 0.31 to 0.35 spaces per car for sporting events, but works out in that same neighborhood of 2.3 to 3.2. So our assumption that we've been going with is the 2 to 3 persons or spectators per car shows that we still have plenty of parking spaces in the Myers lot. And in the off chance that there's not and there's overflow across the street, Iona is committed to having an attendant out there to help people cross the street at that existing crosswalk.
And by crossing the street, you mean 22?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, for the overflow parking that's on the other side, on the side there. And they've committed to having an attendant to help people cross the street there where that existing crosswalk is and guide them towards the field. So.
Any questions here before they keep rolling? Okay, who's next?
That concludes the formal presentation. I will only mention again, I know you're going to open it up to the public, I think it's important to understand the standard here, and we are, of course, doing the best that we can to the extent what the law calls practicable. So, for example, when it comes to sound, it's not our obligation to be silent. It's our obligation to mitigate it to the extent practicable, and we think the standard we used here of approaching the background sound of what already exists in the neighborhood is the appropriate place. I would say the same thing we talked about with the director. It's not that we are making it impossible for a ball to leave the field, but as you can see from years of data, it's extremely unlikely that it would happen. And in fact, again, your police department would tell you that there's never been an accident. In fact, Iona can tell you there's never been a problem over at the field that they've used over in New Rochelle for all those years as well. So lots of information suggesting that we've done everything practicable. And in fact, that last batting cage that we're showing you that we're going to bring in for the batting practice and an even additional belt and suspenders piece to that. With regard to traffic, it's a very minimal number of cars that we're talking about for that road, particularly 22, provided that, and we have taken the precautions to make sure that the parking is on our campus and not on the side streets, and that we have adequate parking for that. And frankly, we're well in excess of that because, again, when people get concerned about the numbers that they're hearing, they should know that we are studying the worst case scenario. So what they're saying is, what is the minimum number of spaces available? Most of the time, there's many more, but they're required to study minimum in the peak. So for the most part, these baseball games, and we looked and I went over them with Matt, and lots of these games, you have 30 people show up, you have 50 people show up. It's mostly parents of the kids, and as I was kidding around with Susan and somebody dating the third baseman that show up for these games. It's just not an awful lot of people, except for the rare event where that comes in. We hope that happens in the future, but there's plenty of ability for this to happen.
Yeah, just one thing that I think would be helpful for you to take 1 minute on. it really hasn't come up here because there have been changes to the stormwater plan since the last meeting. That was addressed in depth in the last meeting. But there may be members of the public here who weren't at the last meeting. If we could take just 1 minute to summarize what's been done on the stormwater front. I
Sure.
think it'd be
Mike,
really
you want to
helpful.
do that? You don't want to hear that from a lawyer.
We'll see if he can keep it to a minute, though.
See, I could talk all night about stormwater, but I don't think you want that either. So, yeah, the stormwater design has not changed, you're correct, in substance since the last meeting. We've added, in response to the comments that were provided, we've added some technical details and made some minor modifications. But in general, the stormwater, we have an infiltration system in the baseball field. It's going to take care of the stormwater from the baseball field. We've now added underground detention under the tennis court, going to mitigate the existing runoff from all the existing impervious campus, from the parking lot that's there today, from the roof of the buildings that are there today, and knock that peak flow down as well. So the end result is, from that entire side of campus, we're on average reducing the runoff, the peak runoff rate for the majority of the storm events by up to 70% on average. So we're going, above and beyond what's required by the problem, obviously downstream. So we're really trying to do the maximum we can do to help mitigate those existing issues, on top of mitigating what we need to by code for the baseball field.
Okay,
So,
terrific. Thank you. I didn't mean to cut off council if you have anything you want to wrap up with. Okay, good. So I think where we'll next move here is to hear from our consultants, because there's been some new information that's been provided. So if you guys could each come up to the mic and just provide whatever commentary you think we should benefit from. Thank you.
Good evening, Rick Bolander, KCJ Consulting. I've kind of focused on the stormwater aspect of the project. And I think the big takeaway from this meeting, and I just feel like it's not fully understood, is yes, there are flooding issues in the area. And what should be understood right now is, under the current conditions of the site, that stormwater runoff from the buildings on the Iona property is flowing unmitigated to the Crawford infrastructure. The only mitigation systems that we are aware of are two small systems in the parking lot in left center, left field of the property. So now that runoff from, you're talking about maybe 2.5 acres of impervious area, plus on top of that, maybe another acre of a pervious area, is now being mitigated in a large underground infiltration system in the baseball field, and then an even larger system under the tennis courts, which unfortunately is only detention because of the soil conditions. So what was not being mitigated is now being mitigated in the magnitude of, I think the tennis court system, I think, is roughly maybe 32,000 cubic feet. And I'm not quite sure the exact number of the baseball field, but just order magnitude wise, you take that cubic feet, you times it by 7.48, and that's gallons. So we're talking about big numbers here of runoff that was once flowing unmitigated to the Crawford Street infrastructure, not even making it to the Crawford Street infrastructure, flooding the outfield and the softball field and neighboring properties. So I think that should be the big takeaway from this meeting. And then, again, there are comments in here. It's high level technical stuff. So I don't want to bore you with that, but I think that's the sticking point.
Yeah, and some of those are cleanup, and we're unlikely to take final action tonight, and therefore there will be a moment to clean up. But
And
the issues are diminishing, I think, as we go.
correct. And the comments in here, it wouldn't really affect the design. It's kind of just clarification on the new detention system, really.
And then I'm trying to recall, do you have anything further to add, or? Yeah, if we can get you up there. Thank you. No, no, no. You guys aren't subject to the same time constraints as they are. You take your time.
Okay. Yes, the comments are going down, which is the right direction. Eric Dorsch, KSCJ Consulting, focusing on the site planning and landscape components. Three bits of that I think would be helpful to understand is there's some site grading proposed for the property. There are a few areas where some existing bedrock, ledge rock is exposed at the surface, particularly in right field on the corner of Rose and White Plains Road, Route 22. And it would just be helpful to understand if encountered, if anticipated for lowering the field in that corner, as the grading plan suggests, if there's bedrock or ledge anticipated to be encountered, what is the means of rock removal? Is it blasting? Is it chipping? Is it, and the anticipated amount would be helpful to understand. And the other item is similar to that in regards to the material that would be excavated or chipped or blasted or removed. Rock is not going to be kept on site, but what's the cut and fill analysis? How much is going to be excavated? Is it going to be used on site? Is it be taken away? What's the metrics on the cut and fill analysis would be helpful to understand. The Westchester County, the next item is the Westchester County Planning Board issued comments on October 14th per general law, planning law. We're required to submit the application to them as a referral so they can review it as it's adjacent to a state road, Route 22, White Plains Road. It's in their purview for the review. And the applicant would be so kind to respond to their comments that they provided. We haven't seen that to date, so that'd be helpful. And I lied, there wasn't 3, it was 4 items. The other item is the mid-block crosswalk along Route 22. To date, that was part of the conversation. That was part of, it's seemingly part of the application and the proposal. And it was just noted that in the last comment response letter that wasn't going to be a part of the application now, or at least at this time. So, as well as a crosswalk connecting from that, sidewalk connecting from that crosswalk going north up Route 22, White Plains Road, and then turning the corner onto Rose Avenue to connect to the north gate entrance of the renovated baseball field. And so that was not mentioned as part of the application as well. So those were the 4 items that would be helpful to understand. So thank you.
And so it sounds like you'll be following up with the applicant. I was particularly focused on the one where Westchester County was suggesting that the higher fence stretch a little bit more around the corner to foul territory. And, that can be a follow-up item. But that was something that struck us as being, a valuable comment from Westchester.
Yes, thank you, Michael. That was one of their comments.
Iona
I
had
see.
not received.
I see.
Hard to respond to comments you haven't received.
Yes,
So,
that
in
makes
fairness,
sense.
We'll
Okay.
take that into consideration. Thank
I'm
you.
glad we cleared that up then. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina.
What's the problem with the mid-block crosswalk?
The DOT can officially weigh in on that, the New York State Department of Transportation, but from what I understand, that it's an outdated crosswalk. The detectable warnings or the mechanisms that indicate to travelers north and southbound in vehicles that it's a crosswalk is just a very antiquated yellow flashing light, which
turns red if somebody presses the button, right?
Oh, okay. However, there are more updated systems like a Hawk system or
I think there are
another.
ones elsewhere on 22. that are the more modern?
Yes, there are, to put it simply, there are more modern systems that are now required or recommended. So
And that mid-block crosswalk leads right to the new entrance from the parking lot there, doesn't it?
the mid-block crosswalk leads from essentially the arched wraparound drop-off area that on the west side of campus, connected to pedestrian walkways across 22 to basically right to where the conservatory is building, and then it connects to the parking lot there at the Meyer Athletic and the baseball parking lot there. So it's an ideal location, honestly, and mid-block crosswalks are not a preferred layout. The DOT would tell you that they'd want them at corners of intersections rather than the middle. So it's a natural stopping point, and it's drivers can expect a crosswalk there at the corners of intersections, but because it's grandfathered in essentially and in place, the DOT would want to see it upgraded to modern standards. So that was that.
Thank you. That's helpful. Any more questions for our consultant before we?
I do have a question, Eric, just because I know you're on top of this. There seems to be still some confusion about zoning for the property, that it's a residential A. However, it's in the plan, the village comprehensive plan, it's referred to as institutional and municipal. And so there's some question about, what is this permitted, this use? And the read of the code, from my perspective, is that it is, permitted, but I think there's still some confusion. So I'm wondering if you could just clarify for us.
Yes, I have the exact language written down in my notebook. I don't have it up here right now, but essentially it's what Mark said before, that it is a permitted use, but I believe it's a special use that is permitted in the residential zone. So it is conforming for the residential zone. I can, if you'd like me to get the specific language, I can do that.
No, not for tonight, but just we've received letters and everybody is, concerned that it's illegal to do it. So we just want to clarify that it is zoned and permitted to have this D1, baseball field in that location. So,
Okay.
but as I said, that's my read of the code. It's
Ah.
just-
So I do have it here. Sorry, I was wrong. So it is, the proposed use is a permitted use pursuant to section 310-8A 3E, 310-9A1, and 310-A1 of the Village Zoning Code. Specific standards for private religious schools are provided under 310-8A3. So it falls under a category of religious schools, academic campuses that are permitted in the residential zone. So it's not a standard permitted use, but it is a permitted use.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. It's helpful to have you up here. Okay, so with that, I think we've completed the Iona presentation and the feedback from our consultants. Is there one more before we get to the public meeting?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, appreciate that.
Eric basically covered my area, but which was
Are
the
we getting to
sidewalk.
sound here? Is that the?
Yeah. Pete Rosillo with Colliers Engineering and Design. We looked at the traffic and parking aspects of this proposal, and it obviously is an iterative process. Drawings are made, comments are presented, and responses are provided. Most important, which they did respond to, is preparing the traffic management plan, which is we're thankful for. We suggest that obviously be shared with the village. But there are a couple of items that are still open. Some of them were mentioned earlier. One is the vehicle occupancy. I still have an issue with that. They can provide a lot of statistics to baseball hits and drives and launch speed and that, but they can't tell us how many people actually attend these events. So going forward, what I'd like to see is that the village require them to actually keep track of how many spectators attend these sports when they start up in the spring, so that we have a baseline. I suspect if it's very successful, you'll probably see an increase in attendance. And of course, it depends on how competitive they are and who they're playing and how competitive their opponents are. The crosswalk is, I think, essential. I don't think you can get away with dismissing that. It's really antiquated. It is not at all near standards, and it's really a safety issue. And presumably, if this is successful, more people will be using the crosswalk.
Because responsibility is the crosswalk.
The crosswalk it's probably, I haven't investigated it, but it's probably what they call a PS signal, a permit signal. It was probably originally issued, its permit issued to Concordia. And with that, Concordia is obligated to pay, this is the usual process, they would pay the state $1,251 a year to maintain that signal. So because the state does that because they know that private entities, and if it's a driveway to a private development, a mall, for example, it's the same thing. They realize that the developer or the owner doesn't necessarily have the wherewithal to be Johnny on the spot to fix stuff when a lamp goes out or a pole gets hit. So the state has a process where you pay them $1,251 and they take over the maintenance for it. So maybe the records, Concordia records or the university's records will show that they've been making that payment. I'd be surprised. It doesn't really look like it's being maintained very well, but that would be the process. Anything new would also be under a permit signal, and they would be obligated to pay the state to maintain it. Now, it doesn't have to be, it could be a Hawk signal. It could be an RFB.
I'm not
A
sure.
Hawk signal it's not a regular traffic signal. It's a setup of like 3 squares, 2 on top, 1 on the bottom, that is basically dark until somebody pushes a button, and then it comes up yellow and then red. And it's strictly for pedestrian crossing. It has nothing to do with traffic.
On 22.
Yeah. On 22, I think it was last year, they put in the RRFBs, the rapid flashing beacons, at a crosswalk. And those go through the same process, all have to be done and designed in accordance with the state through permitting and the like. So that I think is essential to get done. Eric also mentioned the sidewalk extensions. And I did get a copy of the county planning, I think, memo where they also recommended an extension to the sidewalk. I don't think that necessarily has to be done immediately, but I think if you're looking long-term in terms of complete streets and pedestrian activity being done in a safe way, that's a natural link between this crosswalk and the next crosswalk to the north, is to complete that link.
And your concern about the crosswalk and the sidewalks, I think, is based on the assumption that people will be crossing 22 because they parked on the other side.
Right. It's there today for a reason. And I suspect that if they did pedestrian counts, you'd find that when there is activity and people do park on the other side, they have to have a means to cross, and that's a safe way of crossing. So I would not eliminate it.
Right. I guess we've been told that the parking in the Meyer Athletic Center lot is going to be sufficient, but you think
Well,
there'll be people on the other
yeah, but
side?
there's, remember, they're going to be buses are going to be dropping people off there that may cross the street to get to the stadium, because that loop is a drop-off area, is designated as a drop-off area. So there's a likelihood that people will get dropped and then want to cross White Plains Road to
So
get to
the
the stadium.
players more than anybody
Well,
else, probably.
Whomever. I
Yeah.
mean, in terms of ADA, another one of our comments was the ADA compliance to make sure, and I understand that they responded that around the stadium area, the ADA, everything is done according to the number of parking spaces for the disabled is there. I make sure all the sidewalk ramps are that way. I think, again, this gets back to looking at the campus, and I really do mean that. I think more globally, there has to be, again, it doesn't have to be for this approval, but there should be a plan to evaluate the ADA compliance campus-wide to see what needs to be done, if anything needs to be done. It may just be an inventory and everything's fine, and that's okay. But I think that ought to be done. You're making a capital investment here, and I think that should be part of just investigating it at least. Not necessarily you have to change them right away. The state requires there to be a plan to make changes. You don't have to do everything at once. So as long as that you identify where there may be issues and that there's a plan to correct them, that's all that's really required. Again, I do appreciate the traffic management plan. I think that that plan should include access to a university website where people can get information as to the time of games, what parking lots should be used, where the overflow parking would be. It's something that they could access, and that should be made part of that plan. Maybe there's parking restrictions also for one reason or another. Bus schedules, those kinds of things, make it easy for people to understand what's happening. There should also be, the DOT has a transportation management center up in Hawthorne. If there are major events, I'm not talking for an afternoon ball game, but that management center should be given a notice at least a week in advance of that, just to inform them that they're aware that there will be activity at that location, and there'll probably be higher pedestrian activity as well as vehicular activity. And I think there should be, as part of that plan, a meeting between the village, the university, emergency services, and the police should be held, so everyone understands who's doing what and when. That should be part of the plan. And I think, again, the signs, they had a sign plan. This is one that we just developed. It gives a little bit more advanced notice as to where the parking is, so that you have so people turn right where or correctly into the driveway where they're expected to turn. And you give them advance notice, both north and southbound on White Plains Road, that, you know, there is a place for you to park. And you give notification. In other words, southbound, I tried to give it right at Rose so that they know, don't turn onto Rose. You got to go straight. And then
So
you'll
this
have
is
an
your
opportunity.
firm's
That's,
recommendation?
yeah, I just threw that together
Yeah.
because the one they had just had a couple of them right at the driveway. And I think that if you don't give them advance notice, they'll be on top of it before they know that
Yeah.
they should park.
So again, on this, I think we won't be expecting the applicant to respond tonight. I think
Right.
that this will be part of the follow-up with all the consultants as we push forward.
Right.
Okay,
And that's it.
okay, good. Thank you so much. Okay, yeah.
Ask a question. The signage here, before you leave. Is this temporary broad?
Yeah, this is temporary.
event,
This
or
gets,
is
yeah, this
permanent?
gets put up before each event.
Good. Okay, we really appreciate the patience of the public as we've gone through the two Iona applications. We're now going to open up the public meeting, and we'd appreciate hearing from each of you. If you can keep your remarks as brief as you can, and if we can avoid repeating between, I think, you know, we've learned something every time we've heard from the public, and so we'd appreciate any public comment. Please step up to the mic, identify yourself, and please let us know what you have to say.
Yeah, Bill Carney, 101 Middleton Place. I'm on the corner of Crawford and Middleton. Just two questions. I think it's great, again, that they're putting in that stormwater retention system. That should certainly help. Rick might be able to actually answer this. So the storm management that they're putting in on the tennis courts, there are 2 tennis courts that are currently there. Will that storm water retention system be under both of those tennis courts or just one?
In general, this won't be a Q&A, but let's make an exception here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
For the record, Rick Bolander, CJ Consulting. So it's 2 sets of 2 courts. I guess the further east set of 2 courts will contain that underground system, not the 2 to the west of that.
So the 2
Yeah,
farthest
that are-
courts.
Okay, because it looked like.
Closest to Crawford.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So you're using all available area within that. Okay, perfect. Because in the drawings, it looked like they were only using one of the tennis courts. And I'm like, if you're going to dig up one, dig up both of them. The other was, had to do with the entrance on Rose. There is an entrance to the field on Rose. You know, this isn't a public park. that the neighbors are going to access. This is a field that is going to be used strictly by Iona. So I don't see the reason for an entrance to the field on Rose. All you're going to do is encourage people to off, double park, as they've done for years there. There was an access point right there when they had the tennis center there. And when Iona came in, they did actually lock that, and it totally improved people from double parking there. So again, I just feel like if the public, the community isn't going to be using the field, there should be no access point on Rose. We shouldn't have to bear the burden of it. Really don't have an issue with the majority of the field. So if, the only access point really should be on Iona's campus, and they should bear the burden for that. It would certainly help with traffic because people don't listen to signs. There are signs all along that street that say no stopping, no parking, and people have double parked there and stopped there for years. So that's it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, who would like to be next? Please.
Hello, Susan Salerno. I live on Orchard Place. I've been in the village for decades. My concern is one of safety, and I didn't quite understand the numbers of how many home runs there are. I thought there was 1.1 per game, but then that wasn't correct, so I'm not really sure. But I've always been very happy that the village has put great priority on safety, pedestrian safety, traffic safety. We have sign after sign after signage has gone up, particularly in the last year or so, even less. No right turn, no left turn, flashing lights for places that have never had any kind of incident whatsoever, including pedestrian crossings and just traffic stops. And we even recently, a year or so ago, installed a crosswalk at Elm Rock across 22 for safety reasons, which is wonderful, even though there had never been any issues before. So I'm wondering why we should take on this extra burden of minimal danger, but danger nonetheless. And that's a concern of mine. Why are we not sticking to our standard of extreme safety? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, who else would like to say something? Looks like someone's coming.
Good evening. Ryan Mott. I'm a Bronxville resident, and I had 2 points, please. The first is that I heard from counsel from Iona University a number of characterizations about the law. I would just ask that if you rely on any of these characterizations, that you make it a record of it for the appeals board. I heard the attorneys say that noise must only be mitigated to the extent practicable, and I have doubts that is correct standard. From what I can tell, he was citing Title VI, Section 61711, which states to the maximum extent practicable, not to the extent practicable. In my opinion, there's a big difference between those two standards. I also don't think it's the whole story because Section 210.7 of the Bronxville Village Code states that no person shall make or cause to be made unreasonably loud or unusual noise, which a noise disturbs or endangers the comfort, repose, health, or safety of others. And then Section 210.8 says specific noise is prohibited. Section 210.8G, specifically the creation of a noise on any street adjacent to any school, institution of learning, or church while the same is in session. I think that this gives a broader picture, especially given that Concordia Conservatory is right next door, which brings me to my second point. I have 3 children at Concordia Conservatory. My youngest, who is 4, is in early childhood education sessions and takes violin. Her brother takes cello. Their sister takes violin as well. And I am concerned here that what we are seeing is not just a field, but we are seeing the end of the conservatory next to the field. And I say that because at the moment it makes sense for the Concordia Conservatory to exist. It is there next to a sleepy baseball field. There's not a lot of noise. And when this changes and the plan is executed, we will have an NCAA 1 Division I athletic center and a whole complex. And then I question, will Iona renew the lease for Concordia Conservatory? And I don't see a reason why they would. And so I worry that this development will exclude this area that at the moment is a very excellent community hub. And given how little surface area there is in Bronxville, there's not a lot of it. And it's not coming from nowhere. I noticed that in the application, when they were discussing parking, that they had ended the lease of the tennis club that was using the tennis facilities, and that it would now be reserved to Iona exclusive use only. I worry that that's going to happen to that whole area. I just wanted to raise that concern. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Hey, is there anyone else from the public? Looks like someone is stepping up. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine. Thank
Good.
you.
My name is Carolyn Moriarty, and my husband Don and I have lived at 44 Edgewood Lane for more than 30 years. I'm also a conservatory parent and a board member, so I've got a hat and everything. The big concern, and I trust that you all received my letter, thank you. So I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to bore you with that. I have two major concerns, and they are centered around noise, which is something that we can't put a batting cage around. We can't, if we're blasting bedrock into the street, noise is going to be the major issue. And I ask you, very responsible planning board, the lead agents on this, to hold this applicant's feet to the fire, because they have dodged questions about noise. They did a study in the middle of the summer, ostensibly because they wanted the lowest level of ambient noise, and I understand the thinking. Sorry, just because they project based on that doesn't give us any validity to believe these numbers are valid. We need further sound analysis to be done. I am happy to be part of a committee that works with the planning board. I have some ideas as to how we could execute this together as neighbors. Let's work as a community. This is Bronxville. We work together and things get done the right way, because that's how we do it. And I thought it was an excellent suggestion by the planning board member, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, about having some additional sound study done. And we happily have an engineer from the firm present, and I'm sure that he can give us some more information about that. I would hold off any kind of further approval till we know more about the noise, especially construction noise. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Hi. Good evening, Glenn Caspis, 33 Rose. I've made this comment at a previous meeting, but I haven't heard it addressed yet. I just want to call out the fact again, the Tuckahoe School District's buses use Rose Avenue exclusively. And based on the latest proposal from—
Is that to go to the school back there?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yeah. So the school is at the end of Crawford for Cottle, and then just next to it for the middle and high school. The Iona's latest proposal indicated 50% of games would be on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Fridays, right? And game windows are generally going to be 2 to 6 p.m. Again, just pointing out the obvious here, high school, middle school get out around 2 to 2:15. Elementary school gets out at 3 o'clock. So that's prime time for those buses, not to mention the rest of the community members going back and forth down towards the village of Tuckahoe to be running up and down that street. So echoing Bill's comments around the gate on Rose and just traffic mitigation, appreciate that the studies are trying to push traffic towards that parking lot, but I haven't seen any study specifically related to the impact on school buses and to other traffic going back and forth to the school district. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who, please? That sounds like there are two. We won't forget you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Neve Hartnett-Merluccio. I live at 3 Midland Gardens, and I've been a resident of Bronxville for over 28 years. So I'm here this evening. Also, I have my son, who is a student. He's third year of nursing at Iona University here at the Bronxville campus. So I'm here asking that the board really work with Iona University, who is our partner in this community. And I just feel so appreciative to Iona. They came to our community in good faith. They have invested in our community. They've invested up to $80 million so far. They bought, Concordia. They've invested $40 million in infrastructure. And when I sit here and look at everything that they're doing here, and they're addressing the neighbors' concerns within a reasonable limit. This is all about being reasonable, right? And so I would just encourage the board to please work with Iona and, work with supporting an enhancement of a green space. What I would say is that, when I hear all the neighbors' concerns, obviously some of these people are my friends, I understand their concerns, but we have to be reasonable. We live in a very vibrant community, and we have to expect a certain amount of noise, whether we like it or not, right? And we have to know these are children, students playing baseball. This is all things that we should be encouraging. So I just want to say thank you to the board and thank you to Iona. I hope you continue to invest in our community. And a lot of us here in Bronxville are incredibly supportive of what you're doing. And we hope that the board will work with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, behind you, there was someone who had already stood up. It's up to you two to work that out.
I'm happy to let them.
Thank
I've
you.
spoke every time. This is Michael Land. I live at 2 Hobart Street. I do appreciate some of the things they have done to address any concerns. I know 3,000 balls were hit. 6 ended in my backyard, so I do question the data a little bit. I have the physical balls, so we know they do land there. Why not keep the game field in New Rochelle? Why put it in the middle of a leafy community? Sure, Iona is part of the community, but it's an isolated part of the community, in my opinion. We don't get to use this field. This isn't green space for the rest of us. Why are we plunking down a D1 stadium in the middle of surrounded by a bunch of houses? I'm still confused by that fact. I think it'd be a great practice field. Clean it up, do it, but don't make it for games. The noise will definitely be significant. It's significant now without a PA system. We hear everything. It's kind of a valley right there. It echoes out. So I don't know what we can do about that. But and I'm glad there's no lighting, unless the lighting was addressed when I wasn't here. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good evening, all. My name is Kathleen Suss, and I'm the Executive Director at Concordia Conservatory since August 1997. Our standing and rights as long-term tenants. Concordia Conservatory is a long-standing educational institution in Stein Hall on the Bronxville campus, as you all well know, providing community music instruction, therapy programs, performances for hundreds of community members each week, from birth to end of life. Our lease agreement with Iona University grants the conservatory the right to a safe, access, functional parking, and an environmental conducive to instruction and performance. Any site plan approval must ensure Concordia Conservatory operations remain feasible, including safety circulation, which is being addressed, parking, which continues to be addressed, sound environment, which is almost addressed, and uninterrupted student, family, and community access to Stein Hall. As a community serving educational institution, as Iona University is as well, the conservatory's operations cannot be compromised by construction, staging, or post-construction facility impacts. Planning board expectations and required mitigations during construction. The construction parking states that continuous vehicle and pedestrian access will be maintained. I quote, "We need this to be binding, enforceable condition, not a discretionary assurance." ADA access to Stein Hall and our teaching spaces must remain unobstructed at all times, including during staging, materials, and excavation processes. Parking protection for families and community and faculty. This plan continues to evolve and we look forward to continued reporting on that. Noise and reverberation management during teaching hours. Construction noise must be limited during core instruction periods, as is in our lease, Monday through Friday, 12 noon to 8 p.m. We request that a construction noise mitigation plan include no high decibel work during conservatory program hours, coordination of heavy equipment, operation around conservatory schedules, and advance notice of any unusually loud disruptive work. Safety and circulation is all of our concerns. All of us in this room want humans to be safe, and that is our highest priority. So we require and ask for secure fencing around all work zones, controlled truck movement during school peak hours, and a designated safe pedestrian walkway, which is happening, for the conservatory from all parking areas. Post-construction mitigations need for long-term compatibility. Traffic and parking during games, which is being addressed. Sound management to protect music instruction, for we are the tenant and the landlord cannot impede our work. Music instruction requires controlled acoustics. Noise, sound, teaching spaces, as we've all addressed, need to be at certain levels, and we would like to see added reports for that. Pedestrian and campus circulation is absolutely being addressed. And coordination and communication. As a tenant at Iona University since 2021 has received no communication from Iona University regarding the project. Closing message. Concordia Conservatory is deeply committed to being a collaborative tenant, campus neighbor, but we must protect safety, access, and learning environment that our students, families, and community rely on. That's why we are all Iona, Concordia, and Bronxville in this community. We're asking the board, each and every one of you, to ensure these conditions. Attached for specific enforceable mitigation required for us to continue the community together without interruption. I appreciate, and on behalf of the Concordia Conservatory community, the opportunity to present our reservations to this plan. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that calls for one or two quick remarks as we push forward here. I think I can say for all of us, we're all big fans of Concordia Conservatory and its mission and its achievements to date. I think some of the judgments we'll need to make up here is there are aspects of what you were talking about that are really about mitigating the impact of this project on any neighbor, including Concordia Conservatory. And there are aspects that really speak to the landlord-tenant relationship that you have between Iona and Concordia that may be more landlord-tenant issues than planning board issue. And with the help of council, we will parse our way through which is which, but we hear you loud and clear. Any other comments from the public? If you don't mind, we just like to know who everyone is. It's all good.
I actually wasn't getting up planning to say anything. I don't live near Concordia, but I've been in Bronxville for 42 years.
State your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
That's where it
Andrea Collins.
Thank you.
I've lived in Bronxville for 42 years. And I just want to underline how important the Concordia Conservancy is to our community. I don't know if this will impact it or not, but if it does, I think it would be terrible. It's what makes Bronxville special, places like, things like that. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Okay, if there isn't anyone else from the public who has more comments to add, I think we're going to adjourn the public meeting. There will be at least one more such meeting, and there will be opportunities again for the public to speak out. And I think we learn something every time we do. So with the closed public meeting, I think what I was hoping to accomplish among the board at this meeting, because as we saw, our consultants are still working through some details with Iona. There are still some findings that we would need to ultimately make before action is taken on this. But I think we've learned enough that it's worthwhile sort of getting a sense of the board as we're all talking here. And I'll sort of start us out by saying that, you know, this field has a many decades history of being used as an athletic field for a college, or in this case now, a university. And I think I just sort of fundamentally do have sympathy for the desire of Iona to try to improve this field in a way that would allow them to achieve their goal while at the same time mitigating to the extent possible the impact on the neighbors. And so just want to put that out there. We're not taking any votes tonight, but I just wanted to give people a chance to give us their thoughts.
I agree with what you're saying. I think, I also think Iona has been quite responsive to the concerns that we've raised, and in some ways gone beyond, and in some ways has gone beyond what we could, you know, ask them to do to get approval for one project. I am mindful of the fact that going through the village approval process can be a difficult and expensive one. And I hope that we keep mindful of the fact that we not only have to make sure that everything is done that can be done to get approval from the planning board, but I don't think we should push beyond that to, you know, for example, require a plan for the entire development of the campus. We have to keep within our boundaries. And I think this has moved along in a way that does address a lot of the concerns.
Who else would like to, no one's required to, but anyone would like to say anything, please feel free.
I'll always have something to say.
Good.
I just driving by today, the field, and I don't know if they're coyotes or, you know, the scarecrows, but it's in disrepair, and it's pretty, we should feel privileged that there is an entity that wants to invest in improving that space and making it less of an eyesore. So do believe that aesthetically it's going to improve the condition. And I am obviously concerned with life safety as being number one on the quality of life. But, you know, I'm concerned about the balls leaving. I wonder, you know, does it mean going up to 50 feet in the fence? Like, how do you ensure that no balls ever leave? I don't have the answer to that, but it is concerning that they talk about, you know, minimal or infrequent or rare. How can we get to the point where nobody has to worry about balls coming out of the stadium? Also, the traffic issues, and Rose Avenue is significant. It's where everybody goes to pick up their kids and their buses. And, you know, I have a lot of friends that have kids in Tuckahoe schools, and I'd hate to see this really impact them negatively. And I do hope that, that the traffic, whatever measures are put into place are really enforced, and that there are police ticketing or something to ensure that people don't double park, and because people are going to take advantage of the situation. It's very unfortunate. It's such a great proposal for the community, but I think everybody needs to work together to make sure that people don't overreach or, you know, break the boundaries of what's determined.
Richard, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I find it, I find it heartening that Iona is trying to make an investment in our community. There's a whole range of things that Iona could have done. They could have left the field in the condition it's in and done nothing to remediate flood conditions down the hill. They could do as they proposed, to update, upgrade, and use this and remediate some of the problems we have in the community, while also trying to mitigate the impacts of sound and lighting and so on and so forth. They could choose to leave it fallow, which Iona would not benefit at all from. And I can understand why you choose not to do that. But you could also find alternative uses for it. There's a whole spectrum here, right? Alternative uses could be converting it to dorms or a campus health center or something where the nursing right across the street would benefit from it. You could sell it for development, recoup some of your investment, right? We could see micro mansions like elsewhere on 22. pop up. And again, those properties would not remediate any of the existing downhill flooding issues, most likely. Nor I don't know if we would have the leverage to force them to. And again, you could sell the land to the state. And there have been, there's a lot of interest in other public projects, long-term care facilities, affordable housing, so on and so forth. And a lot of the barriers to that have been there's no available land in Bronxville. So, but what you've done is you have selected a use which keeps with the tradition that we've had since the 60s, I think. We look back at the history of this, baseball in the area, and tries to address the public concerns. We've been hearing from you for a year now. So this has not been a quick process, and I appreciate that. So for me, I find it heartening that we are continuing to have the dialogue. And I think that it's important to realize that there's a wide spectrum of what could have happened when Iona University made this investment in the property. And so I am supportive of continuing to work with Iona and the other parties to try and find the right path. And I think some of the concerns today about what happens, a lot of what we focused on is we have a new field, right? And how is the community impacted by that? But today we also focused on, well, it doesn't magically happen. That field's not going just to occur because we've approved it, if we were to approve it. But there is a period of construction, which would be very disruptive, and how do we manage that? So I think I'd like to see more discussion about that piece so that we can manage the transitional period if there is approval down the line. Now, obviously, we're not making a decision today, so there's more opportunity to come back, and we do have a bunch of open questions. But I feel pretty favorable about the process thus far and where this plan falls on the spectrum of what could have been possible. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Would anyone else like to have anything to say?
I essentially agree with everyone that has made comments. I think the residents have brought forth some very thoughtful issues that do need to be addressed. By the same token, I think that Iona has been very, very responsive and has done a lot to address those comments. So I feel very confident that over time we will work through all of the issues that the residents have, and make sure that we get something that everyone feels good about going forward. But I applaud Iona and all the things that they have done to be responsive here.
Last but not least.
For me, I try to break it down that this application is really centered around four main issues. One is the structural and aesthetic appearance of the field, which, so that's one. Two is flooding issues in the area. Three is traffic and parking enforcement. And four is potential noise and light pollution. I think the first three, the applicant is addressing an existing problem where, one, I think we recognize Concordia left the field in a dilapidated state, unfortunately. And this planning board has been partially dealing with the repercussions of that through a number of applications that had to come through here, which were not ideal scenarios where we had to tear down homes. It was not what we wanted to do, but it had to occur because it was pretty much a condemned property. So we are working through those. I think the applicant has put forth a good plan on how to address that, to bring up the safety standards. I think a lot of the netting addresses increased safety issues where there is currently not netting. And then on the flooding issue, I think they have put forth a variety of good plans for detention to help with flooding issues in that area. Additionally, I think the village has also stepped up to recognize that there is a flooding problem there and is working on addressing that. So I think those are two issues that the applicant has addressed appropriately where there is an existing problem. The third one is around traffic and parking enforcement. I think that is a substantial issue of the facility today, that people do not know where to park, that there are people inappropriately parking on Rose Avenue. I think the applicant has put forth some initial plans, which I would like to go over in detail, whether it's now or later, around this event traffic management plan, but that will be critical on resolving that, which I think that is one that is unresolved yet, and we will go through that. The fourth is around noise pollution. Now, this is an issue that is partially self-made as part of the application of a PA system. And that's why I put it as a separate issue from the first three, where the first three have existing problems that the applicant is solving. The fourth one is a self-created problem. And so that, for me, will go into a separate bucket of why that is necessary, and is that necessary to be completed now? And it goes to my last point, where with all renovations in the village, a lot of it has to do with trust. And I think there, fairly or unfairly, there has been some erosion of trust from the university, from the neighbors of the university on certain promises that were made. Now, some of it is dating back to Concordia, and I'm excluding those, but we have heard claims that there were supposed to be parking attendants for the soccer field that weren't there, and people were frustrated because of that, and those are situations that erode trust. And when neighbors are being asked to trust that a sound system will not adversely impact them, that traffic will not adversely impact them, the erosion of that trust makes it difficult. So, I think part of this will be building more trust, and the way the Iona works through this project can hopefully demonstrate that trust that the neighbors can graciously build over time. And so that goes a little bit mainly to the noise issue, because I think the noise issue has a lot of trust elements, because how do you moderate that? How do you manage that? How do you manage what is going to be played out of that PA system? And so that is one of the, I think, the largest issues around the application. Of the four issues I noted, that one for me has a variety of details to still go through.
Okay. So I think that's a helpful discussion. I think it gives both the applicant and, the folks who've come here to, give us their perspective, a little bit of a sense, even though we're not taking action today, of the perspective that the board members have moving forward. And so go ahead, Mike.
I have one last point. We've received a lot of feedback from the community, which we have all read every single one of those, I can assure you. I think what I would ask the community is what would be most helpful are not emails or not communications about a pure objection to the proposal. We've understood that and we've heard that. What would be most helpful as we get to kind of making a final decision and really refining plans are understanding what aspects of the application are desired or appreciated or supportive, as well as the aspects of the application that bring consternation or that are issues, and whether there are proposals on how to address those. That helps at least me understand what's important, what isn't important, what can potentially be changed. But the emails that say, we have a clear objection to, I've heard that, but that doesn't help me very much on helping craft and kind of find a compromise between the applicant and the neighbors on what's possible, which is what we as a board really are trying to serve as, right? If everything was black and white, that's what the code is there for. But the village has this planning board to have humans, not AI, there to bring a human element to kind of work together as a community to find that middle path.
Yeah, thanks. That's very, very well put. So with that, I think we're going to ask for a motion to adjourn, and just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Do we have that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
See you again.